Howling from 1981. Easily one of the best werewolf movies ever made, and I think easily one of the scariest. It's the type of film that if you watch it home alone at night, you'd be on your toes. You know what I mean, when you hear every crack and creak in the house because you're so freaked out? Yeah, it's that kind of film. What made this film so scary is how dark it is. None of it is watered down teeny bop or crap like Twilight. Nah, The Howling doesn't mess around. The makeup was great, but it was the transformations of the werewolves that really set it apart from other werewolf films. The werewolves were regular people, but nonetheless a werewolf. This movie is actually based on the Gary Brenda book, The Howling. Although I haven't read the books, I've read that The Howling 4, the original Nightmare, is based on the same book as well and stays a lot closer to the author's original concept. The movie did really well, investing $1 million into it and grossing $18 million. It's also interesting that the film only took 28 days to shoot, with a few other reshoot days. And the film is surprisingly detailed. I'm not going to go into everything because there are like 25 wolf puns in the movie, but keep an eye out for books on the table and posters that have werewolf references. You'll spot a few. It's amazing how films affect each other in indirect ways as well. Because of their work on this film, Joe Dante and Michael Finnell, directors and producers, got a shot at Gremlins, and the rest is history. So without further delay, let's take a look at The Howling from 1981. Now, like I was saying, this film is actually pretty detailed, and there's a lot of dialogue that isn't needed for this type of a review, so I'm just going to touch base on some of the scenes that I think tell the gist of the story. The beginning is a mishmash of clips being scrambled with audio. I don't really get it. But we meet George Wagner doing a show, an important character. We'll see more of him later. We first see our heroine in the alley, Karen White, a news reporter out to find Eddie, a serial killer who's obsessed with her. And we meet her husband, Sam Neill. She has a wire and she's going to meet him so the police can detain him. She's instructed by Eddie to call from a certain phone booth. Check out this news anchor practicing in the washroom. What a tool. Eddie calls the booth in order to tell her where to meet. Then the wire goes dead and they lose communication. You'd think they'd hook her up with better gear. Note, the man who enters the booth just after her is Roger Corman, who produced the original Little Shop of Horrors from 1960. But if you're my age, you're likely more familiar with the one from the 80s with Rick Moranis. She enters the porn shop, then a booth. I have to skip over all the nude parts, unfortunately, but Eddie is behind her. Eddie is actually played by Robert Picardo, the doctor from Star Trek Voyager. That blows my mind, I don't know why. Also, when he's talking to her in the booth, the lips are out of sync with the sound big time. He half changes into a wolf, and you can't really see it, and then the cops show up and blow him away. Karen gets seriously messed up over the experience and subsequently has lost memory of what occurred in the booth. Karen is even having trouble being intimate with Sam. Clearly she needs some help with all of this. Following her freezing up in front of the camera while doing a broadcast, Dr. George Wagner has suggested that they go to a retreat for some therapy. She agrees. Her and Sam head up to the retreat called The Colony. The name seems kinda off to me. They get there and they are meeting everyone on the beach and they're having some sort of party. Little do they know they are amongst werewolves. There are some seriously weird people here, and if I was there, I think I'd be on my way. The first night hits and Karen hears about the scariest howl I've heard. She goes outside to investigate. And why do people do this in horror flicks? Go outside looking for what they hear? I mean, it's beyond me. At least she had the sense to go back in. Eddie goes missing from the morgue. The following night, Karen and a friend go out with a shotgun to see what all the howling is. They find a dead cow. The fog is a nice touch to the night scenes. Karen's co-workers check out a kind of occult collection shop to buy some werewolf books. I'm not sure why they were there, but they learned some key things about werewolves. Mainly, fire and silver bullets kill them. Marcia goes to kiss Sam, but he'll have none of it. Walking through the forest, Sam gets attacked by a werewolf, but it was so fast he didn't catch what it was. Karen's friends arrive. Bill and Marcia get it on, while Terry records all the howling she hears at night. Sam and Marcia turn into werewolves while doing the nasty, and that's gotta be a first in films. I mean, two werewolves changing while getting it on. Terry notices that the drawing that she found in Eddie's apartment is a perfect match to the landscape at the retreat, but what are the odds she'd be standing right where Eddie was when he drew that picture? Terry is walking through the forest and finds Eddie's shack, not to be confused with Eddie's shack. Okay, bad joke. It's a creepy little scene with Eddie whispering her name in the forest. These little things are what I think make the film so strong. Eddie, or what you think is Eddie, is pounding away at the door, and Terry goes out the window, and the werewolf grabs her. You only see bits of the wolf, which I think makes it more interesting. She hacks off his arm and takes off. Karen knows that Sam was with Marcia. Meanwhile, Terry finds Eddie's file, and Eddie appears out of nowhere. Eddie picks her up and chows down on her neck. Exit stage right, Terry. Now the movie really takes off. We meet Eddie face to face in human form, nice and clear here. They chat, and the best werewolf transformation in any film takes place. Sit back and enjoy this. Then Karen throws some acid in his face, and makes a getaway. Why there was acid in a bottle in the doc's office beats me. Karen tries to split, but they grab her and bring her to the farm. Meanwhile, Chris is burning rubber trying to get there and get her. Chris arrives and enters the doc's office. He has a rifle and those silver bullets that he bought. He shoots Eddie and then puts down a few of them at the barn. Awesome scene at the barn when they actually realize that they're silver bullets. They set the barn on fire and take off. They shoot the cop roadblocking them and leave their car for the cop car. And then their car explodes, and your guess is as good as mine as to why. I'm not sure. They're in the cop car, and guess what? You guessed it, the car won't start. I mean, how often can this happen, really? Anyways, there's werewolves all over the car now. They take off, but Karen gets bit. Chris and Karen come up with a plan to make people believe. Karen turns into a werewolf on air, and Chris blows her away. An interesting end to a main character, I think. There's a quick scene showing Marcia surviving the fire, and that wraps up the Howling. Looking at this movie, there are a couple things that stand out. The story itself is rich, similar to that of like Interview with a Vampire, where the characters are fictional but deal with real-life events, though I think Interview was far more in-depth. The appearances of the werewolves were perfect, not too much, but enough to satisfy your curiosity. The Eddie character is terrifying, and so are the looks of the werewolves. The makeup was great, and so were the special effects. Dee Wallace was great in this film as Karen. This film, in my opinion, sets the bar high for werewolf fans. It spawned a number of sequels, which, although may not be as good as the original, shows the success of the franchise. I'd recommend this film to someone as a solid 7 out of 10. This is Pat for Horror Movie Review Guy saying sub for updated posts, and take care. Bye.